Before we begin today's episode, a content warning. This episode includes discussion of child sexual abuse and trauma. Please listen with care. If this topic is triggering for you, we encourage you to pause and return when it feels safe for you to do so. Para se ta fillojmë, ky episod përfshin diskutimet rreth dhunës seksuale të fëmijëve dhe traumë. Ju lutem dëgjoni me kujdes dhe vetëm nëse ndini të sigurt emocionalisht. Nëse kjo temë është rënd për ju, mund të ndaloni episodin dhe ktheni kur ndini gati. Lidhjet për ndihmë janë në përshkrim.
Përshëndetje motra.
Mirë se keni ardhur në Trime podcast.
I'm Leonarda.
I'm Lejla. Welcome home. Today we have a guest in the studio with us. And we are so excited to welcome Emily. We're gonna let you do your own intro, but Emily reached out to us off the back of Nancy's episode, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Emily was like, oh my God, I want to come on. I want to share my lived experience as a young Albanian girl with cerebral palsy and your lived experience of surviving forms of abuse and violence. And we were like,
yes,
absolutely, yes. Like
yes.
For us, it was like, yes, instantly. And we actually realised that in the old studio was so inaccessible for anyone with disabilities that we then took the time to carefully find another studio off the back of Nancy's episode and actually talking with you that is more accessible. So that's why one of the reasons why we've actually moved studio. So thank you for being that trigger. Inspiration. That trigger, that inspiration for us, because it was so needed. So Emily, why don't you tell us a bit more about who you are and like just owning your own story and why you're here?
Yeah, so I'm Emily. I'm 21. I have cerebral palsy. I was diagnosed with it at birth. And honestly, why I'm here is when I was listening to the episodes and when I saw the TikTok page, I didn't know that a podcast like this could exist or would even exist. And as soon as I saw it was targeted to Albanian women and like our community, I was like, this is the perfect place to share my story, you know, because it's the perfect audience in terms of, I think a lot of women listening hopefully well, not hopefully, because it's, all of the things that I'm going to say are quite dark, but I think they'll resonate with a lot of what pain I hold and the strength it takes to break silence and just the strength it takes to go through any form of abuse, to be honest. And I was like, this is the perfect platform. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, I have to reach out and do this, because I think younger me would have loved to see someone like in my position do this and like say what I'm gonna say now and say like that getting out is possible, because I can say right off the bat, like I thought that my abuse would continue for the rest of my life, and I thought I would just live to experience abuse and that's it. My whole life would just be pain. That's all I thought it was gonna be. But obviously now that's not the case, because it has ended. And that person's no longer in my life anymore. And, you know, it's been a journey to get there, but it's possible. And I just want any young girl that might be listening that could be going through it right now to know that it's possible to get out the other end and you're not going to live in misery for the rest of your life. It's not, so I would say if I did this a few years ago, I don't think this conversation would be possible, because it takes some time to like, it takes telling a few people to get to this point now where you have the guts to go on a podcast and say it for everyone to listen to. So I'm not saying I've gotten to this point lightly. Like it's been a journey, like such a journey from even just telling friends. And like, you wouldn't think that that's scary, because it's like, what, your friends are going to support you, you know what I mean? But it is scary to, because I think it's such a vulnerable thing to share.
Absolutely, it is.
So it's scary even in terms of friends, because you don't know if they're going to keep that confidential. You don't know what they're going to think. Are they going to judge you? I think a lot of girls that go through sexual abuse are, you know, prone to silence because of scared of being judged, of what other people are going to think or say, or like, And I think the thinking side of things is the scariest thing, because they might not have the guts to tell you, but they might be thinking something inside, you know? And I think a lot of people don't, you know, my parents included, don't understand the impacts of sexual abuse at all, because it's like everyone turns around and says, like, I even had a teacher tell me this once, because I opened up about it at my sixth form, so I was around like 17.
Wow.
And the teacher said to me, like, couldn't you just tell your mum? And I was like, it's not that simple, you know?
Also a complete misunderstanding of our culture.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That wouldn't, like, we would never have conversations openly, freely like that.
Yeah, but even if you have like understanding parents and parents that show up and parents that unconditionally love you, it's a hard conversation to have, because that's what abuse does to you. It silences you. Your voice is gone. You can't, I almost felt like there was a tape over my mouth, and there was no way I could speak. It's the element of our culture and us finding it difficult to have hard conversations with our parents is definitely there, but I think it's just in general, it's such a hard conversation to have, because it's like, how do you even start that conversation? You know?
Even if there was a safe space, it still would have been almost, feels like impossible to open up that conversation, because it's something that's so traumatic to talk to anybody about, even with a safe space.
So I mean, the abuse happened from since I was 3 until I was 14, so it was a long 11 years period of time. Obviously it was someone known to my family, so that makes things a whole lot more complicated, because it becomes very hidden. Like, abusers know how to hide things. Like, they know.
Do.
They make such calculated moves. And I think, looking back, I was so young, so I could barely comprehend what was happening to me. So it's like, how can I even put into words something that I don't even understand myself? And I think that's what made opening up about it so tough. But also, like, I didn't have a safe place with my parents, so I couldn't just turn around and say, Mom, Dad, this is happening, you know? Because I was scared of them. I feared them, if I'm being honest, you know? And the steps, I would say, towards opening up, I think it's very, 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 I would be so surprised to hear someone say that they opened up whilst the abuse was happening. So I think step number 1 is for the abuse to stop happening. And then step number 2, so my abuse stopped happening when I was 14, and I tried to, like, give a small like hint to my parents of what, I didn't tell them the whole story, but I gave them a hint, like, just so they kind of can maybe guess for themselves what happened, you know, because I was scared to reveal the whole truth. And I wasn't met with, you know, what you deserve to be met with when you go through that experience. There was a lot of denial. So, like, things like, nothing happened, there's nothing to report. How are you going to report it? There's no evidence, which is a big thing with being sexually abused.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, all their reaction and their anger towards me confused me a lot, because I was like, wait, you shouldn't be angry at me. You should be angry at the person that did this, you know? And it shut me down for, like, and that's why I didn't open up about it for, like, 3 more years, because I was like, I've tried, and I held on to that hope that my parents would surprise me and respond in a loving way. So that's why I gave them that chance when I was 14. And if I could speak to anyone listening now that, you know, maybe fears their parents and says, like, oh, but I don't know what to say, I don't know how to start the conversation, I don't know how they're going to react, I'm scared they're going to get angry, and, you know, anything that you're afraid of, I would say give them the chance to surprise to surprise you, because you never know, they could surprise you.
Yeah.
But if they don't, like how it happened with me, then you know in yourself, okay, at least I gave them a chance. And then you can move on to like finding different ways to help yourself. And once I was 17, when I was 17, we just come out of lockdown, and I started going to sixth form, and I was like, I just felt like this urge where something has to change. I can't continue in this turmoil anymore, because I think lockdown made me, because everything was shut down and we had nothing to distract ourselves with. I was like, I have to face this. I can't continue, because it was making me go crazy, even like at home being locked, so I was like, I have to find a way. And I just kind of trusted my gut instinct and went to a teacher who was actually my head of year at the time at sixth form, and he was a male, which I point out because I think a lot of women would be surprised by that and say like, oh, but a man hurt you, so why would you go to a male,
Well, it depends on who you feel safe with.
Yeah,
exactly.
And like, there's this thing of like, surely you wouldn't trust a male, but I think for me, he played in the way that he reacted and the way that he listened. He literally didn't even, when I disclosed the abuse, he didn't even say anything. He just listened the whole time. And that conversation, I can't even remember that conversation because I cried so much. The
first time actually being heard.
Yeah. And I felt so seen, and like I could be myself and be authentic and be heard and seen, and I felt so held. And he showed up for me every single day, in any way that I wanted and needed, and I think he became such a father figure to me, and still is, even though like obviously I don't see him anymore. He still is that father figure to me, and he was a massive, like, I guess, step forward towards my healing, not just in disclosing it, but in because he made me believe that men can be safe. And not every man out there is gonna hurt you, so he was such a like step forward in my healing, but also he's the driving force, because a lot of people ask me what makes you continue, what makes you have the guts to like go to therapy, face this, deal with this, whatever. Like, once you meet someone that holds you in such loving hands, it's such a, like, even if you really didn't want to, it's almost like you have to, for that person, they're your driving force to recover. Like, I don't know that you ever recover from these things,
it's
but
ongoing.
I don't know that you ever recover from these things, but I think he's such a driving force for me even now, to even like have the guts to come on here and do this, because the version of me when I was 17 and talking to him, I could barely get a word out of my mouth, but now I'm able to speak about it on a podcast, so he's such a massive reason why I do why I just put myself out there and want to tell my story and want to just do well for myself in everyday life.
What support was put in place after you made the disclosures?
So I asked him to help me get some therapy, but it was obviously going to be a hard thing to do because my parents were obviously against it. And with me, I think the barrier with like having a disability as well is that I can't just get out of the house, get on the bus and go to a therapist.
You're reliant on other people helping you
for transport, and that made things 10 times harder. So I was like, how am I gonna go to a therapist and hide it from them almost, and because of like waiting lists, it didn't end up happening in sixth form. But once I got into university and I got a maintenance loan, I was like, do you know what, let's just go privately. Let's just do this. And I was like, there has to be a way I can do it online. And then I found a site called BetterHelp, and I just started on there. And, you know, since then, I'm still in therapy now, 2 years, which is crazy for me to say.
Emily, I've been in therapy for 6 years. So, like, trust me, it's going to be ongoing.
Yeah. I know, I know.
But stick with it.
Yeah,
like, that
it's
is
such a good.
the
It's
fact
been
that
life-changing.
Like, the fact that you fought so hard with
Yeah.
all of those barriers just to make it to today is
amazing.
Yeah, like,
It's so brave.
It's so inspiring.
Yeah, you embody the name Trime.
Quite literally.
Thank
And I
you.
said that to you, didn't I, the other day in the message? I was like, you quite literally embody what it means to be a Trimnesh. And one of the reasons why I asked what was put in place after disclosure was because I don't think there's been any justice for you, has there? So what's that felt like for you to not get justice for what you went through?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of police, there hasn't been anything. I was obviously asked about it when I disclosed at school, but again, it was one of those things that I was afraid of doing, not because of like me thinking I don't deserve for him, he doesn't deserve to be arrested. Of course he does, but I think the biggest thing that kind of held me back to doing that was my parents, because I knew they were going to be against it and they were going to say like, you don't have any evidence, what's the point, da da da. So it's it was tough to say no to that, I think, but I think it again speaks to like how you react to these situations. And I'm saying this to parents listening. If you're a parent listening and you have a daughter, you have a son, because I'm not saying this can't happen to boys. If you have any child, do not, under any circumstance, try and navigate their way of how they're going to get around this type of a situation. Do not try and tell them, don't go to the police, don't go to therapy, don't do this. If they want to go to the police, that's fine. If they don't want to go to the police, that's also fine. It's their choice. Lead
the ways,
let them have the autonomy, because
Yeah.
this is the thing with these types of things. When you go through, especially sexual abuse, you lose that autonomy. And you're basically re-traumatizing your child by not allowing them to have that choice. And yeah, I think that's what a lot of parents don't understand, because they think it's just a simple response. But it's not.
It's not.
You completely lose that choice. And then once a parent doesn't be there for you in a like groundbreaking time, you can't trust them anymore, even if it's like the simplest of things. Because it's like, my parent wasn't there for me when it mattered most. So why should I trust them now, you know? It
takes then a lot of work actually rebuilding relationships like that. And I know I can speak from my own lived experience with my own parents, because I've never been able to have a relationship with one of my parents, just like you say, because in those hardest moments, they weren't there. They made it tougher. And with the intersection of having cerebral palsy, because you mentioned, you know, saying that I couldn't even get to therapy, how was I going to do that? What impact has that had, you know, on whilst the abuse was taking place, but more so now in your recovery? What impact has the both intersections had on you? Because you're Albanian, you have cerebral palsy, like you have all of these parts of your identity, and you're still really young. It's like, how on earth am I supposed to recover when it feels like it's barrier after barrier after barrier? Yeah, no, completely. I think in terms of the abuse, my disability kind of put me at a disadvantage. You're always at a disadvantage when you're being abused by someone, but it put me at even more disadvantage because it gave him a reason to, or like an easy way out to hide it. So he used to say things like, oh, I'm just helping her, you know? Oh my God, And whilst I had so much, like, whilst the abuse was happening, I was like, how are my parents not understanding this, you know? But like at the same time, I understood them not understanding it, because he was so manipulative. It's crazy. Like how you can say like, oh, I'm just helping her, and you don't think anything bad of that, like, because it's normal for someone to stand up and say, oh, let me get that door for you, you know? People do that for me all the time, and it's a good thing, as they should, you know? But like,
when it's used in a manipulative way, that's where, you know, abuse can kick in. And like, he had the easy way to like have me alone, and that's where, like, you know, issues can arise, because you can just use this thing that makes someone quote unquote vulnerable, and, you know, abuse them.
Do you think there could have been anything whilst it was happening, whilst you were being subjected to this? Do you look back and think there were moments where someone could have stepped in and stopped it?
I do, because I do think there were signs. I think that now, and I thought that when it was going on, there were certain moments where I was like, it's so obvious that this is happening. How, you know, without sounding mean in any way towards my parents, because I understand, like, you know, this was a person that they trusted. So that's the thing. Again, that's where, like, the grooming happens.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
Like,
perpetrators, they're not just grooming you, they're grooming everyone around you too, in particular perpetrators of sexual violence, in particular for when it's children who are being subjected to the sexual violence.
And that's the thing, like, he used the fact that he was a person that everyone trusted to be able to do what he wanted to do. And like, it's there were definitely signs, 100%. Like, there were moments where he would be like, where like I would be sat on his lap, and it's like, why the hell would you want me to be sat on your lap, you know? So it's like, those certain things, like, if you look at it from a like, at a distance, you can tell, obviously, like, why would I need to be sat on? I don't even sit on my dad's lap. Like, you know, why would I need to sit on your lap? You know what I mean? So it's there are definitely, for any parent out there listening, there are definitely signs. You just have to, and I think, educate yourself, but also educate your children of signs.
And in our community, obviously, these are things that we don't talk about at all. It's going to sound like such an obvious question, sorry, but how do you feel about us not having these conversations? The fact that we stay silent, especially when it comes to sexual abuse and sexual violence, especially when it's happening to children.
I'm going to say something that is going to sound, like, to certain people listening, might sound really mean.
Nothing is mean on this podcast, yeah?
Nothing.
The floor is all yours. That's why you're here.
Your mind.
Speak your mind.
I think the fact that we don't speak about these things means there's a big window for sexual abuse to happen.
Yeah.
Because talk about the uncomfortable situation. Why are they uncomfortable?
Yeah.
That's how you literally made your child through sex. Come on, like, you know what I mean? Talk about it. Talk about this person shouldn't touch this. This person shouldn't be. You shouldn't be alone with this person. You shouldn't. I don't know. Whatever it is, like, this person shouldn't. These are your boundaries. These are your body. These are your boundaries with consent. Your body. This is what is consent. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
My body has power. My voice matters. All of this stuff. This is why it creates such a window for these things to happen, because we don't learn boundaries growing up. You know.
I think, like, even in particular in our community, for as young girls, like, we're not even taught the right language for our body parts.
Yeah. No.
Like, when I was young, like, you were supposed to call, like, your vagina mum. My mum was like more, like, just call it more.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's what I called it growing up.
Yeah.
And the fact
or
that,
even
like,
simple things like our period.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Like, I didn't even know what a period was until I got mine.
It's a thing that boys are supposed to know. Excuse me, they learn it in school. Like, why should we walk on eggshells around them just because it's like this supposedly uncomfortable conversation? It's a normal thing that happens to our bodies.
And we're never taught what is a good touch and a bad touch.
Yeah.
We're not taught as kids what is a good touch and what is a bad touch. And
even who's a safe adult or not. And like, I know here in England, I can only speak for England because I don't know what the rest of the diaspora is like in terms of sexual education, but from a young age, they like, I think Bella was really, really young when they learn about consent and that kind of stuff. But like, we just don't have these conversations in our community. Like, I know that even sharing a story like this, on this podcast, so many people are going to be so uncomfortable listening to it. Not that I give a shit. I don't care who's uncomfortable, but I know that it's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's saying all of this. It's like, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you share this awful part about you? But also, we're so privileged that you are sharing this part of your life with us. So privileged, because not many people in our community quite frankly have the balls and courage to do so, but you're here and you're doing it, and we're so proud of you. So proud of you for being here with us today. Like, so proud of you.
It's incredible. And the strength, the strength that you have, the inner strength, the strength to make sure that you develop yourself and you actually come out of it, and you go to therapy, you do this, you're speaking up for all these other girls and boys, because we know both boys and girls can be subjected to sexual abuse. In our community, we don't talk about it, but we have the highest statistics of domestic abuse, including sexual harassment. So sexual abuse and harassment. So someone needs to talk about it, and thank you so much for coming here and taking the lead to talk about it.
Quite literally, I think you're our first guest on the pod to discuss something like this.
Wow.
We're talking about your recovery, right? And you taking it upon yourself despite all these barriers to go to therapy. And speaking out takes so much strength, especially when you're taught that your voice actually doesn't matter, especially when you're a young child, because you're still young, but as a child, we're like ignored. We're not seen as like, we don't have anything valuable to say. We're like constantly telling fibs and lies and making up these fantasies in our head. What was that moment for you that made you think, I'm going to share my story publicly? Because I know you had that moment of, I'm going to disclose it to someone who's safe. But what was that point that made you think, no, I don't want to be quiet, anonymous with this? And what does reclaiming your voice mean for you?
In terms of reclaiming my voice, like, I'm doing this because someone out there can be, like, I know people have anonymously spoken about sexual abuse, and you've anonymously read them out on this podcast, but it takes huge guts to come here in person and put a face to the experience. And even people in my life that don't know I've gone through this are they're gonna watch this. I'm gonna send it to them, and they're gonna be like, the hell, I didn't know you went through this. You know, so it takes huge guts, but I'm doing it for anyone out there that thinks they're on their own in this experience. You are not, because I am a survivor. And for anyone out there that thinks they're going to forever live their life in silence, lies, whatever it can, masks, because that's how I lived my life for such a long time. And like, I was known for my smile, which is crazy, because if you look at what was going on in my life.
Well, as an abuse victim, you get really good at manipulating everyone around you that you're happy and everything's okay, because you're so desperately hurting inside. You don't even know how to talk about it. But you don't want other people to pick up on it. I know.
And I think in terms of so I think reclaiming my voice is exactly this. And I think I wanted to start my own podcast, and I still do. It's an aim of mine. In 2024, I was like, I just got this. I've had certain moments in my life which were very intuitive. Like, I just went with my intuition, and it was the same with the teacher that I disclosed this information to. But like, I just had this huge intuition that I need to start my own podcast, and I think it's such a healing move for me, because all this makes you so silent, and starting your own podcast, talking about mental health, whatever it is, right, is such a, that's what you need. You need your voice to come out, because you spent years suppressing that, you know. So yeah, talking about it helps. Talking about it to anyone, parents, someone that you trust, friends, whatever. And it's such a journey, like, because I've had to talk about it with various people to get to this point where I'm like, okay, I have the guts to go and talk about this and let people listen to it. It was even a conversation that I had with my parents like a few days ago. They were like, are you ready for people to comment and say whatever they're going to say? And I'm not going to lie to you, like, you say who's your guts, who like gives you the motivation to come here and do this? You. Because I saw the comment a few weeks ago. It annoyed me so much, still does. Someone commented something about you dating outside of the culture.
Yeah. That's a daily thing for me.
I saw that. I was coming out of the gym. Yeah. I saw that and I was like, there's no way someone just commented that. What the hell?
That's daily on the pod, daily on TikTok.
Yeah,
I saw this and I was like, what the hell? That is such a low thing to do.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, there are good, probably, there are going to be people that comment, you know, negative things and out of line things, but that's why I'm doing it, because there's people out there that exist that think in very messed up ways, and want to silence me, but I'm not silenced because I'm on here.
And the thing is and those people, they're never going to change. You can't change them. Forget about it. But what you're doing actually is, in spite of that, showing other young Albanian girls that no matter what, that they too are just as Trimnesh as you are by coming here and sharing this today.
Exactly. You've been part of the national campaigns for children in need. You've shown up really boldly. They're incredible. We've watched all of them. But do you ever feel like the world wants only part of your story, your only part of your inspirational story? And what do you really want people to know about you and to actually learn
so
about
I think
you?
My disability is quite, because it's visible, it's quite an obvious thing about me. And I think I get it all the time. People say, you're so inspirational, oh my God, like, which is great, don't get me wrong. But, and a lot of, I think, people ask me, like, where do you get this determination from? Where do you get this resilience from? And like, usually I would say it's my disability when I don't necessarily want to talk about my traumas. But I think wholeheartedly it's because of what I went through in childhood. Because the thing is, that's what going through long, especially when you go through abuse for years, it gives you that resilience that that's like a positive thing you can get out of traumas, you know? It's that resilience because you have to continue, you have to survive, you know? So I think it's a huge part as to why I'm determined, that a lot of people maybe don't know about. And I want people to see, I think, the bravery, the guts that it takes to come out with this type of a story, not just on here, but just in general, telling people in your day-to-day life. And I want people to see a girl that could have chosen to continue cycles but didn't. I want people to see a girl that could have chosen to ignore her mental health but didn't and went to therapy. And because I'm telling you, that takes guts. Saying I want to go to therapy and I need to face my shit takes guts.
Yeah, absolutely does.
And a lot of people don't have the guts to do it, because that's why generational trauma exists, you know. So I want people to see the realness behind the determination that a lot of people think is just my disability, but it's actually a lot deeper.
And if there's another Albanian girl out there that's disabled, being hurt, and listening to you in this moment, what would you like to tell her?
First, I would say, like I said before, if you're in a similar situation to me, allow your parents the chance to prove you wrong. Allow your parents the chance to turn around and say, we are with you. Unfortunately, I didn't get that, but allow your parents that chance, because then you can turn around, and even if they don't respond that way, you can turn around and say, I held on to that hope, I gave them a chance, they failed me, now I choose to move forward in whatever way is right for me, you know. And that's another thing that I would say. No one chooses what healing looks like for you. You lost that autonomy in this abuse that you went through. Now you get to choose what happens from now on, you know, what healing looks like. And I would say that there is help out there in whatever form you think is right for you, whether that's therapy, whether that's talking to, like, because my first step was going to disclose it to someone. There is help out there. I wouldn't be the woman I am today without that person that I disclosed it to, because of how warmly he reacted to the situation and how he showed up for me day in, day out. There are people that will do that, even if that's not your parents, even if that's not a sibling, you know. You just have to trust in then again, that's another thing that I would say with the journey of healing. Like, if you go to therapy, which I highly recommend, by the way, for things like this, if you go to therapy, you have to trust the process. I'm telling you, trust the process, because there are so many moments where I've been like to myself, am I going backwards? Am I not? I felt like I wasn't moving forward, but you have to trust, because it's going to feel like that sometimes. It's going to feel shitty because you're bringing up really hard things, but you have to trust, like, and keep going, keep showing up every single week. You show up every single week. That's how I've seen the changes, through the consistency, you know. And the last thing I'd probably say is, your life is not defined by your pain. I thought that I was going to live a life full of pain, and like, I was going to go through this abuse for years and years and years and years, never speak up about it, and die. Like, that's what I thought my purpose, which makes me so sad. Like, I genuinely thought my purpose on this earth was just to be abused. That's it.
But it's not.
It's
Yeah,
not.
It's not
At all. Emily, we're so honoured that you came on today. And genuinely thank you for trusting our space.
Honestly.
And for trusting the two of us with your story. And I know, much like most of our guests that have come on, but I know that this one in particular is going to be a very, very special story that we've been able to tell. So thank you for trusting us.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And continue with what you're doing. You're amazing.
Please.